All right, thanks again, everyone joining in. First, I think is we have our keynote session. And for that, I would like to invite and introduce Nanda. Nanda is Vice President Operations at RR Donnelly. She's based out of Chennai for the organization and outsourcing platform and has over 30 years of experience, work experience in outsourcing and corporate finance. She manages team of research, analytics, and finance management services. Prior to joining RRD, Nanda worked with Thomson Reuters and Ernst & Young. Nanda holds a bachelor degree in mathematics and computer science, as well as an MBA from Bombay University. She has a postgraduate diploma in business analytics and intelligence from the Indian Institute of Management, Bangalore. So thanks, Nanda, for joining us. I will give this session over to you for your keynote speech.
Thank you, Vikas. Good afternoon, everyone. So I will speak about automating complex processes and a little bit about what all this is. There's a lot of buzz about automation and automating more complex processes. So we'll start with trying to understand what this is all about and then go into the various challenges and what is the impact of all this on operations and a little more towards the outsourcing industry because that's where I am from. So let's move to the next slide, Vikas. So if you look at automation itself, it started off a few years back with the robotic automation process, which was using bots to automate very rule-driven, simple tasks. And usually they were using VBA scripts to automate, and it could be very simple tasks like, for example, let us say, you are getting invoices from various vendors to a particular email box. Then the bot will go and download all those attachments, all those invoices, and put them in a folder. These could be day-wise folders, or if the subject matter of the email is the name of the vendor, then it could be vendor-wise folders. But it cannot have the intelligence to be able to find out who is the vendor if the name is not put as a subject. So that was how it started off with very simple tasks, but then it evolved a little more over a period of time. And today what we have is what is known as hyper automation, which means that you are automating everything that is possible to automate. And a lot of times this is done by using a combination of methods. It's not just robotics or just AI and machine learning, but it's a mix of different things. You bring in APIs that connect databases that are outside of that particular system. You have an intelligent workflow system, an intelligent business management, process management system. So what happens there is that your input comes in the tool. There is a IT sitting behind it. There is intelligence sitting behind it. So let us take if it's an insurance back office kind of a process, then all the documents that are put in are classified and put into different queues. Automation is able to identify what the document is, whether it's a cancellation of a policy or it's a renewal of a policy or endorsement or it's a claims process, and it will put it into different queues. And then there is OCR technology, there is NLP, which can actually understand the context of the sentence and then figure out what is the right data to be extracted. So it culls out the information, puts it into the right boxes and automates the process. So that is how automation has evolved in the last 3 to 4 years, and it has evolved pretty drastically and pretty fast. And then, of course, you have these chatbots that you see everywhere. I mean, chatbots are probably there on every site, whether you go to for a bank to do your online account management or your insurance renewals. Everywhere there are chatbots. But what is happening is that these are also becoming more intelligent. So there are certain companies, like there is a company called Lemon Tree, which says that it has its chatbot and it has automation so that, if you make a claim online, you just upload your documents and within 4 to 5 minutes, certain types of simpler claims can be just automatically processed and you will, get it done within minutes, and it's all without any human interference. So that's the amount of intelligence that is going into the automation in the last few years, and that is making end-to-end automation possible. The implication of this is what I'll speak about in the next slide. Because can you move to the next slide? So as a result of all this, we are having automation platforms that do not require any coding, that does not require any understanding of data science. And people have access to platforms where automation is such that you can just use the platform without having to understand the data science behind it, without having knowledge of AI algorithms. So it is possible for a normal person to start utilizing data science. uh, Sorry, okay. So it is possible for a normal person to be able to utilize all these things and be able to have much better decision making possible. So a HR manager could possibly just upload all the attrition information and get analysis and get forecasting telling that these are the people at risk going forward. You need to look into these people and see how you can reach. Or a marketing manager will have access to a sales forecast, or given a budget, they will be able to decide their media mix as to how much they need to put into which mode of advertising to get the best results out of it. So this kind of intelligent decision making will be possible by people in operations taking advantage of data sciences, thanks to the new platforms that are evolving. And one of those is the Botminds kind of platform, which we have seen is something that really doesn't require any code, and the subject matter knowledge person can actually use it without having to understand data science. So that's one of the biggest evolution that is happening, and this is one of the uh, big advantages that we've had with automation of complex processes. Moving on to the next slide. The impact of all this obviously would be that there would be savings due to automation. Now, this savings due to automation is not necessarily always possible unless you have a few things in place and make it work in an intelligent fashion. But the implication also is that a lot of very mundane data entry kind of jobs will get eliminated in the future. And what will happen is that you will be expected to instead be take a lot more informed decisions, use insights, and work in a far more intelligent manner. And as far as the outsourcing industry is concerned, the landscape will definitely dramatically change for the outsourcing industry. You will find that the contracts now will change. Companies would say that I would want to invest in technology and do it in-house unless you give me some additional value. You tell me that you will be able to give value over a period of time. And there will also be the question of data protection and how you manage to be accountable for everything. So that's the impact for the outsourcing industry. Next slide, Vikas. Um, the important factors to understand is that for this kind of very complex automation to work, it has to be an extremely collaborative approach. It is not possible for somebody who understands all these algorithms to sit in isolation and get results. It has to be cross-functional teams that have to work. There has to be a mix of skills, SMEs, IT people, analytics, analysts, and data scientists all coming together and working as groups. Different perspectives have to be looked in, otherwise it will never be a successful project. And that's what we have seen, at least in our experience over the past few years, that the projects that are successful are always where there are cross-functional teams that are able to communicate with each other and that are able to work together in a very cohesive manner. If that communication between the teams and the different stakeholders fails, then the entire project fails. And it's not just the stakeholders. It's always important that you need to communicate with the entire team. People need to understand what is it that you are doing, what is the implication of it, and how will it impact them. Otherwise, people start feeling insecure that their roles will get diminished in future. They start bringing in their own insecurities, which kind of put the projects at risk. uh, it is important that you understand the broader organizational perspectives and priorities and not just address isolated business issues, because when you are looking at large scale automation of very big processes, it needs to be a strategic view that is brought in there. And most of these systems also need to be a lot more flexible. They should be dynamic in such a way that, you know, over a period of time they can evolve, they can learn from the information, they can learn from the training that comes in as you start working on these and keep improving. So that's another important thing, that the flexibility is required. A rigid system will never work. And very often the benefits are not very possible if you just look at automating process by process that is there in the as-is scenario. What is required is to re-engineer the entire the system, otherwise you don't get the same benefits. I'll give an example of a project that we worked on with a client of ours. They had this modeling work which they did in different regions, and they wanted the whole thing to be automated. So when we automated it, when we came with the project proposal, we realized that the cost of automation versus the benefit of it, the ROI was not really great. But then what we realized is that you don't need a separate bot to process the whole work for APAC, and a separate bot for EMEA, and a separate bot for North America. The bot can work 24/7. Humans can't. So one bot can actually be used across the regions, which meant that, you know, you have to have a unified work process for all the regions, and you cannot have that being done in separate places. Now, obviously, people sitting in different regions were working in different ways. That means you had to standardize across all the regions and make business rules that were common across them, taking into account the differences as well. So that was a huge re-engineering process. But once the re-engineering was done, that is when the entire automation process was able to yield benefits, and then the benefits were substantial compared to what was expected in the beginning. So that's important when you do these automation processes. When you look at it, you will have to look at it in a different perspective. It cannot be that the as-is scenario can be replicated in many situations. The another important thing is that, you know, very often when you try to automate, you try to look at end-to-end automation, and again the cost benefit analysis fails, because what happens is that if you have to automate everything, the extra effort required is probably not worth the benefit. So it is better to have an expert in the loop kind of a system, where there is a person who is working along with the automated system to review what the system is doing, to be able to put in certain inputs where the system is not efficient enough, and to work together in a combined fashion. So it will be far more easier to make these systems work when there is a human in the loop or expert in the loop. Like I said, communication and effective communication, all these automated oriented projects, and that culture is extremely important. Moving on to the next slide, another very important thing that is coming up today when so much of complex processes are getting automated is the question of the transparency and traceability. You cannot have a black box giving you some solution which you are not sure of. You don't know how it came, why it came, and explainability is very important. We all heard of Amazon's automated interviewing process that failed because the data used was flawed, and as a result, uh, it was biased. So integrity of the data is important. It could be that, you know, unknowingly you are using biased data, or it could be there could be ethical issues where you are wantedly using some skewed data which is giving you some skewed results. So validating the data, testing the data, having some kind of a audit trail for that will become very important going forward. As you start automating more and more complex processes, there has to be a governance process kept in place that will take care of all this, make sure that you are able to explain the results, you are able to audit the data being used, you are also able to audit the algorithms that are being used, make sure that the data you put in is complete and correct, and it is making sense. So this is some of the one of the things, but the other important thing is also that security that comes in. So moving on to the next slide. If you see going forward, one of the most important things that will happen is that you will start looking at security for data of the data also, because as you start automating more and more, and as you start heavily investing in AI, you will realize that a lot of this is now dependent on your data which is put out there. So the confidentiality of the data, the ability of somebody to hack into these data, into this data, all that will be the concern for anyone using these systems. So security, bringing in enough systems to protect the data will be one of the very important questions going forward. The next thing we need to understand is also that, this kind of investment in automation is not just with businesses and companies. Governments will also start investing heavily into it, and the results will percolate down to industry. We always hear of, governments like China that have invested so much into facial recognition that the big brother is watching you all the time, and everything that is happening in your life. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not true, but the reality is that over a period of time there will be a lot more investments by the government to make sure that they harness this to get results. The government of India is talking about investing into spend analytics, thereby they can detect tax evasion. That by itself could be a huge project for the government, but will in addition result in a lot more of projects that will flow down to the industry. Finally, I think the IT and BPO industries will really play a very big role in driving this whole adoption of automation, especially automation of complex processes, because these companies are in a position where they can actually replicate their learnings with one customer across the industry. And then companies will realize that, instead of each of company trying to reinvent the wheel, it is easier to go to somebody who has done it for someone else, somebody who has invested in these platforms, who has the infrastructure in place, and who are the experts in it. So this will be a key significant development in the IT industry, in the KPO industry, in the BPO industry. These industries will no longer be talking about arbitrage in salaries between the Western world and India. They will be talking about the efficiencies that they can bring in because of the knowledge that they have and the ability that they have to be able to provide these tech-based solutions that can give better results and higher productivity, greater quality. So that's what is likely to happen in future for this industry. And then I will wind up finally with a quote, which is also a note of caution. Bill Gates has said that the first rule of any technology used in business is that automation applied to any efficient operation will magnify the efficiency. On the other hand, if it is applied to an inefficient operation, it will magnify the inefficiency. So it again brings me back to what I said earlier, that when you are automating, you may have to necessarily look at re-engineering the processes and looking at things differently before you do the automation. If that is not done, the results will not really be what you want. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Nanda. Thanks for sharing your experience. And something that I haven't really touched at the very beginning when I introduced to you is the fact that you're literally actually doing what you've just talked about. You're looking at the process operations, you're evaluating technologies, you're working with Botminds as well, and you're delivering solutions, and you're going through all of these challenges and looking at solutions for all of them. So thank you very much for sharing that.
Welcome.
Ekta.
Yes, thank you so much. Because we have a question in the chat box. Should we take
Yeah.
that first? Okay.
Yeah.
We have a question from Krishna from L&T. He asked, how do you decide which algorithm is required for data analysis? For my data analysis, that is his question.
Yeah.
I
So
think there is no
go ahead.
answer to it. Because
Go
are
ahead,
you
Nanda.
answering it?
No, go ahead, Nanda. I think the question is for
So
you.
I think these are iterative processes often, and it also is based on your experience of what has worked in similar situations. But go ahead and explain a little more, because you are the expert from that sense. I'm more from operations.
Sure. So yeah, I mean, I think the idea is for you to be able to try these out. We are definitely not specifically talking about algorithms here. We're talking about platform. But just to be able to touch that question that you had asked, I think the idea is to see which one works, which of the scenarios work. And if I could just take that away from an algorithm to, say, for example, a platform, like one platform may not suit to everyone. And that's the same logic that goes forward. Certain platforms have multiple algorithms, and certain others have very specific ones. So you literally have to try it out to begin with, or start with some information where you already know that this we specifically are looking at we're specifically looking at where the solution has been done. But things like these are taken care of in a platform like Botminds or a unified platform that I'll talk about, which basically addresses that challenge on which algorithm is the right one. I hope that helps to begin with. Hopefully by the end, there'll be more information for you, SK.
Yes, thank you so much, Vikas. Thank you, Nanda, for sharing your insights. So next session we have is from Vikas himself. He's going to share his insights on reimagining knowledge service industry in the AI era. And if we have any questions, audiences, you can please put in the chat box. We will take it from there. Yes, over to you, Vikas. Thank you.
Thanks, Ekta. And once again, thanks everyone for joining in. I think we have roughly about 58 companies, various companies that kind of registered and for this webinar. So it's really fantastic to have all of you on board. So what we are talking about today specifically is how do we reimagine the knowledge process services within the AI era. Now that we have moved and we are in the AI era for last year or so, extension from an RPA to an IPA and now to the AI dedicatedly. So that's the agenda. My attempt to just cover that and bring you the information from that perspective in the next 30 minutes. So the very first thing really is that what is key is speed with intelligence is literally critical to automation. What we've seen in the last couple of years, and essentially Nanda spoke about that at the very beginning, automation is fine. Automation is that has come through. But in the last couple of years, what has happened is that automation has had to expand its, by automation I specifically mean RPA, has had to expand its horizon because every single thing that was standard, that was very, very, predefined input and the predefined output has kind of already been done. Now, RPA is looking at expanding its capability to extract and to be able to impact more processes. And to the key to the automation really is speed and intelligence. And speed we already have from an RPA, from a bot perspective. But intelligence as of now is still within the SMEs and still within all of us, within the human beings. And as a result of this gap in which we have one technology that is just running on speed, whereas the intelligence on what needs to be done, what needs to be evaluated, sitting with humans as separately outside of those systems, some of the processes are either kind of not fully automated or broken, or some of them have already been put out and saying it's kind of hard to achieve. And the one that we're specifically talking about today, which a lot of knowledge process services deal with, is documents. And that's the idea to to discuss about that. So document-based processing is literally one of the biggest challenges. And with documents, I mean any kind of documents. You've got your balance sheets, you got your 10K filings, you got your legal documents, you got your contracts, you got resumes, you got invoices. Documents which are hundreds of pages long have a variety of data, a variety of types of data sitting in there. So the problem first is that documents are unstructured. That is the inherent problem, inherent scenario, or let's say attribute of a particular document. What is required and these documents? That is, to us, that looks like the right kind of a solution. The second scenario is that the knowledge resides within the SMEs. So what we need to do is an ability to capture that knowledge, from the SMEs, that complexity, and why do they do what they do? Because a decision being done, by a human being, whether to, promote something or highlight something or extract something. It's not a simple RPA automation, which is looking at an input and output. There's a decision involved there. And the third piece is there are multiple systems, in place, to handle the current across a single client. You may have multiple systems that need to go from one point to the other by the time you get the output. And once you are within the service industry of knowledge process services, which most of you are, you're dealing with multiple clients, multiple systems, and multiple processes there. So what is expected or what is required literally is all the important non-trivial systems and can put all of these 3-4 things in place. So when we look back at, what are the challenges that are there in front of the knowledge services industry or the KPOs, I've kind of broken this down into these 5 main categories, and I've grouped them out in bunch of twos. I'll just cover a few of them or maybe all of them. So first is documented sources. Documents come from a variety of sources. And the problem with that really is that by the time you first need to go fetch that document, whether it's an FTP, it's a website, or it's an email, somebody has to fetch that document. You may have some automation, taking care of that. Then that document or the data needs to be cleaned. It needs to be prepared. It needs to be made ready so that the next subsequent system, which is most likely RPA in most scenarios, or a certain bit of automation can take over from there. So that second, like I spoke about in the previous slide also, is that it's people and knowledge. People hold the key, people hold all the knowledge. And the problem or challenge with that, not really problem, but the challenge with that is the best practices stays with SMEs and SMEs change. SMEs could go from one process to the other, may leave the entire organization, may leave the organization completely. And as a challenge of that, finding, retaining the knowledge and the SMEs becomes challenging. Very simple, so you have got multiple clients and multiple systems that needs to be, addressed. And with that, you have, multiple connectors that need to be written, which is where you probably connect, one client system to your system so that the information kind of flows. And it's all of this is very, very time consuming. And when you look at a timeline, in terms of evaluation of the process, evaluation of the output you're looking at needs to be validated because, yeah, people have best practices, but people also have their own best practices. Because if I'm, 2 years in the process and a person who's joined us 6 months within the process, we have been given a sheet that is best practices, do things. And as a result of that, you have a lot of quality check that needs to be done. You want to make sure that the end result is basically, correct whether it's processed by a new person or an old person, tenured person, I mean. And, when non-standard processes are executed, it takes time. It takes, a long time. Which is, I'm sure you can all align to that, is the lead time to onboard a client is always very, very time bound. There's hardly enough time to train people, leave alone, picking up a new application or a technology or a solution, and then configure it and then automate that. Usually there isn't enough time to do all of these things. And the point that needs to be kind of done is, you have very short time to onboard. Seasonality, very key part, being able to address, volume from the holidays, volume otherwise as well, becomes challenging. And there's a lot of dependency. The moment you start creating your own platforms, there's a lot of dependency that comes to the IT wing in your organization. And what happens is every single business activity kind of needs to be initiated or done by IT before it can actually take place, otherwise. And as a result of that, it's a very slow execution. So in my mind, these are the various categories or various challenges that knowledge process services industry that currently has. So if you were to take a step back and just imagine we are starting from a clean slate, or how would we go ahead and look at an ideal solution? What would it possibly look like? So in my mind personally, and I think from all the people that I've spoken with so far during my work within the RPA as well, is that we are basically now at a place where we are definitely looking at an AI-based solution that is something easy for business to use. By easy for business, it means, of course, multiple things: configurable, no code, business users, drag and drop, all of that is there. And then it comes to that it is easy to integrate. Doesn't really take a couple of weeks. And nobody talks about months and years now. It's come down to be done within very short span of time. So it should be very easy to integrate. And I would really like, if I'm putting wish list, I would definitely put something like a modular and customizable towards that, which really means is that if I'm picking up a platform for an organization, I would want to pick up a platform that essentially works across the organization. I can use this in my finance department, I can use that in my legal department, and I can use that in my HR department if required. And what that means is I can pick and choose the different modules which are available, and then I can customize them in terms of the input and output, and my job gets done there. So that's, to me, that's what the wish list looks like. And to us at Botminds, that's what the wish list looks like. And with that, what we have brought in is a world's first unified no-code IDP and IPA platform. I don't need to explain the acronyms here. So document processing is the main stay here. And on top of that, it's a complete platform that also has the IPA integrated to that. So what it really means is it's a one unified platform that essentially does end-to-end process automation when it specifically comes down for documents. So you can read and understand the documents and automate rich workflows towards the end. So with the next couple of minutes, I'll just go a little bit deeper on that in terms of what is it that we have to offer on both of these specific sides here. So we got the intelligent document processing. So what you're looking at really is that you need easy extraction from the documents. You need faster classification so that the moment a document comes in, years back, you would all remember, some organizations may still do, we have level 0. Level 0 essentially looks at a ticket that comes in or a document that comes in, and it files in a particular folder or in a particular mailbox or a queue so that the relevant person can pick up. So that's your classification. You want to look at whether the document is is a resume, is it a legal document, or it's a balance sheet or an invoice. So that classification, you want it fast. You want AI first automation. You want you should be able to get visual predictions and layout and semantic understanding. So the first section that you see, which is in terms of your document understanding, that gives you faster classification amongst all the things that I just mentioned. In PDF, you get layout and semantic understanding. It doesn't matter whether your PDF is horizontal, vertical, whether it's a native PDF or it's a scanned PDF, all the PDF data gets extracted. Then comes down to web page understanding, which is usually sitting within the dark data zone where not many technologies venture over there, apart from the web scraping engine. I'm not talking about that. But the challenge in terms of automation really is that one would look at the data which is currently there, rather which I'm not even aware of, that is there, and the problem that I'm not even aware of that is there. So web or web open web essentially opens up that complete section there. So to be able to have a a document object model that has that kind of an understanding, that can bring the understanding on what the web page is about, extract all the values, present it in a form, in a standardized form, in a structured form, that is kind of key. And when it comes down to a text understanding, then you're looking at semantic and structural understanding. That I think is a very key, which essentially means that you want to be able to understand what is the meaning. Now, when we look at data, when we look at extraction of values, we're not looking at keywords to be extracted. If you're looking at balance sheet and you're looking at cash and cash equivalents, you're literally looking at 7 different ways in which cash and cash equivalents are represented in the balance sheet, and that's what semantic understanding, brings in. when it comes down to your table understanding, you want to be able to extract values from respective cells, rows, columns, and all of these pieces can, should be broken down. And that's what, Botminds provides, a complete table understanding with all of this broken down. And from a form perspective, the latest breakthrough that we got really was in terms of being able to understand whether a form is checked, a box specifically is checked or unchecked. So you get a layout understanding and you get a checkbox understanding. And apart from all these highlights that I mentioned, all of course carry, easy extraction, classification, AI first models, etc. And what we have is, pre-trained base models. And what that literally means is that you don't have to teach semantics to Botminds AI. You don't really have to sit down and put 100,000, data points, attribute examples. You can just simply, put a couple of hundred, examples and get started for your, extraction right off the bat. The second piece that is there is in terms of the intelligent document processing, intelligent process automation. So I have covered IDP. So in terms of intelligent process automation, we're looking at three things, as a group here. So we're looking at, AI supervision. Once you have, done the initial piece, which is, your point and click annotation, your rapid teaching, your human in the loop, you're basically looking at a way to generate, auto ML. So you generate machine learning models, on the fly. So Botminds allows you to have a one-click, model generation. And it offers transparency as something that Nanda touched upon. It's very, very critical. It's not just, bias in terms of Amazon's, interview process. It's, real estate. Certain people who are searching from certain different regions within the US and others are never shown the listings that they're not supposed to be, shown. And nobody's sitting there and, declassifying that. It's the information that has been fed in and what the AI has essentially learned. So what Botminds offers is a transparent AI, allows you to see at any given point of time, what is the accuracy level, what data has been fed in, what is causing what model to get generated, and if the accuracy is not coming up to par, you get the information that this is sitting at a lower percentage and it needs more example, and you can feed those examples there. So basically, we generate models one click. Then once you've done the, the point and click annotation, you've done the model generation, you're essentially sitting with, AI orchestration, which allows you to reuse the model. So once you've created that, you have reusability that currently, exists, and you have a fast scoping API that takes care of that. Then intelligent web crawler, which essentially is your easy web monitoring. What you get is that you have the ability to just monitor, a web. If the information needs to be picked up from a particular source, you can just say, every hour, look for some documents to come through. The moment that comes in, I want that to be extracted. And, Botminds will go ahead and monitor that. Cross data linker is where we go ahead and enrich the knowledge from the data that has been extracted. We provide you with a visual summary, and we provide you with the real-time signals, from that in terms of multiple documents and multiple data points. The connectors allow you to run, fast data intakes, and we have, multiple sources where we can pick up information from your, from the containers, from the news sites, from an FTP, from an email, et cetera, et cetera. And if the information needs to be kind of picked up from a specific application, we have connectors for most of them built up, and if not, we put that together as well. In terms of the enterprise workflow, we're looking at, easy workflow automation. I know that for an organization, it is very important to not just get the job done, but to get the job done through a workflow. There are different people doing different tasks and different activities, and we have those integrated. So you have a full workflow, which is integrated within Botminds platform. The cognitive search is kind of key here, because that allows you to have a full text semantic search through the results and through your documents. So if you upload the documents and you put them there, and you start looking for some information, you get the information through the documents and of course from the output that has been extracted. And it's not just specifically from the main documents. Legal documents have multiple addendums, multiple attachments there. One of the examples, the demo that I'll show you, also has some similar scenarios too. And what Botminds platform does is it goes ahead and picks up the relevant information from those attachments and brings them together in a single summarized format. And of course, reporting, which gives you, unified summary towards the end. So with that, let's take a look at what are the benefits that are coming through. I've spoken about these two major pieces of, our IDP section and IPA section, and we put everything together as a unified. So as a result of that, I'm going to read this top down this time. So you have an AI first approach, and I think that's very key at this time. Having spent, 5+ years, within the RPA industry, working with the top 2, top 3 tier RPA providers, it is kind of very important that there are a lot of organizations, a lot of RPA players, which are basically moving from an RPA, and then they have a layer of AI on top of that. Some organizations, some players have decided to build it. Some have decided to integrate, with the others. What we offer is an AI first approach. So we are first as an AI company, as an AI platform, and then we have our IPA and our process automation kind of built on top of that. And as a result of that, with that, you have modular blocks which are kind of available. So in cases you don't need a table understanding, we can take that off, and table understanding doesn't need to be featured. But if you have, your documents which essentially has, free flowing text as well as table, you put that table understanding back in, and you have that modular piece running. We offer a no-code automation framework, and there's literally no place for anyone to write a code within Botminds platform. It is all about point-and-click training. When you identify the attributes, when you go ahead and train the model, all of that is done through point-and-click. And of course, you may be thinking that, okay, 100 attributes, 200 documents, 200 examples, that's a lot of, pointing and clicking. Of course, we have, a faster way, a bulk way of doing that as well. Initial things are done, but at the same time, all of the things that we're talking about is through a point and click training within the platform. What that offers is an end-to-end platform, which is a unified platform with an enterprise-grade security, and the integrations which are available to you. With the enterprise part, I'll cover the cloud on the last column. So we are a SaaS-based platform, of course. All of this works out of your browser. We deploy our AI on the private cloud. So on the cloud where you look at the deployment, we deploy our AI in that cloud for you. It is not that you are working off on a cloud and there's a Botminds AI mothership which is separate where all the decisions are being done. That's not the case. You literally have the AI sitting on your cloud. So nothing really leaves from that cloud, and all the decisions get done right there within that cloud itself. And we also offer on-prem in case that is the decision criteria for someone saying that the on-cloud is not okay and needs to be on-prem. And the last point that I want to touch upon is, excuse me, last point I want to touch upon is that on this slide is that there is, if you take a step back and look at your entire process, you could look at it like the diagram, which is on top right corner. You could look at the entire thing as the overall nodes or collection of nodes, or you could just look at one specific node as your document understanding. And what I want to mention to you is that at Botminds, we have the ability to cover all of that. So if document understanding is just one node for you, we are there. We take care of that. But if it is the overall end-to-end process, we have the full model, with that as well. I've got a few more things to cover, but here is where the interesting part begins in terms of where you can see, instead of listening to me, you can actually see the process, running there. So these are various solutions where our platform, has found its application. You may find something that you currently deal with. So these are legal compliance, finance accounting, spreading process, tender risk automation, web data extraction, and research and analytics. Out of these, I've just picked up one example to give you at the, on today. So this is an example where there's a major information provider client in that we had based out of US. And the portal essentially was looking at taking the investment decisions on municipal bonds. Muni bonds are essentially debt securities that are issued by state and local governments, and these can be thought of as loans that investors make to local governments and are used to fund public works such as parks, as an example. The muni bond market is one of the largest and most important U.S. capital market, for state and municipal finance. So you're looking at about $4 trillion market cap with about 55,000 users, 1.5 million, bonds that are issued, and roughly between 100 to 2,000 bonds issued each year. The reason why I'm mentioning that is to give you the gravity of the scope and the overall size and complexity of this scenario. So each of the issue essentially, has an offering of about 100+ pages from where 100+ attributes kind of need to be extracted. Attributes in one way or the other are the fields and the specific information that you're looking at. And the problem that our client here essentially faced was in terms of the volume. So there's a tremendous amount of volume. We're looking at 1 million plus municipal bonds, which are there. The speed at which that needed to be delivered. If they were to do everything that they were doing kind of manually, it would have taken them a good part of a year to be able to complete that. Reviewing that non-standard clauses, non-standard output was, of course, a large challenge. And as a result of that, there were multiple revisions that kind of need to be managed. So quality was an issue there. And of course, most of that, one of the other key part there was to be able to have a unified solution where all of these things can be essentially managed, from an end-to-end perspective. And as a result of, implementation of a Botminds platform with the client, we were able to give them an 83% in the reduction of the overall time spent, per document. So they were spending roughly 12 hours per document. It's a 100-page document, 100 pieces of information that need to be extracted. With human in the loop added, we were able to bring it down to 2 hours. And the accuracy that we were able to deliver was, up to about 99%. And as a result of all of that, there was a 60% cost saving, that was given, back to the client. So I have a quick 5-minute demo that I will show you, and we'll go from there. Let's open one of these bonds. When you open it up, what you see on the platform is broken down into 2 sections. On the left is where the document gets uploaded, and on the right-hand side is the extraction summary. When the document gets uploaded, it gets converted into a smart document. On the right-hand side, all the extracted values in the summary. I think it's better if I do my original voiceover on that. So what you see is on the right-hand side is the extracted summary. On the left-hand side is the overall document. And the document is a smart document here. And on this piece, every information that has come through, all the fields that we needed to extract have kind of been highlighted here. And with that, you can see that the basic information has been classified. So we picked up all the pieces of information that we understood are critical as the basic information that has been extracted. It's a 148-page document here. And from there, we found information on multiple pages. And you can actually see that page information here as well. So when you put that out, you can see the information is coming from page number 1, 7, and 15, and more information as and when that is there. In addition to this, these are the key elements and the attributes that were requested to be exported. So you have settlement date, you had first coupon date, and you had registration key, and so on and so forth. In certain scenarios, you may find that what Botminds has given is given and extracted multiple values, multiple candidates of that specific value, that has been extracted here. So in this case, in terms of the issue info, so you've got that information being picked up. We have a table right here on the left that will just show up in about a minute's time here. And so all of these issuer type, have been extracted here. Now the issuer description, again, we found this in multiple pages. Page number 1, page number 11, etc. So all of this information has kind of been pulled out from a variety of pages. Now at this point of time, before it gets pushed out, a human in the loop will do the verification here and say, I want this information and not that information, as an example. Here the information of one of the tables. So at this point, we didn't need to extract information all through from the table. So we have picked up the entire values of the table and we presented that here. If this needed to be further classified, we can go ahead and classify that, going forward. What you would see next is a complete table, that is there, and all of these record number 2, etc., has been extracted from that piece. So you will see maturity date, principal amount, interest, and you can see that all of this pieces of information has been pulled out from an unstructured to a structured. Yeah, I mean it's a table, but it's not a table that an OCR or any other technology can just read off the bat. So it needs to be brought into a structured format. And at any given point of time that you want to look at where this information has been extracted from, you can go ahead and click on that like you're seeing on the screen, and the information gets picked up on the left hand side. So that's the reference there. So the key thing to note here is you probably would not be spending, once everything has been trained, you would not be spending much time sitting here looking at and admiring the results here. You basically would want to, feed in the information and then extract the information and then move forward from there. So I'll quickly go on to the extraction now. So there are a variety of places where you can extract. You can use a PDF, JSON, TSV, and CSV. As a reference example, I'll do a PDF extraction. So when we do PDF, it gets downloaded. All the information that has been extracted from the summary that you saw is here. But what is key, and at this point, and what usually gets missed when you do the extraction manually, what gets left out is where this value was extracted from, and that results into multiple versions and multiple, back and forth. What you can see at every given point of time, we've got a page number written there, which essentially is a link, and that's something that we call as a deep linking. So we have this page number 15. Notice this, 30. The moment you click on that, you will be taken to the platform, to that specific, file, and to that page and to that value, that paragraph that actually has that value. So that's the deep linking. It goes ahead through every single piece of information that is there. All right. So with that, that is the end piece of that, and I'll conclude this with just saying towards the end on what is the benefit that you're essentially looking at. So you're looking at, an 80% cost saving, to begin with, and you have the ability to, free up your resources and get them to do higher value tasks if required. And a platform like this, a unified platform, allows you to increase your capacity because you're not looking at downloading, extracting values. You saw in the previous example where 12 hours time was reduced to 2 hours. So you basically have a lot more capacity, and that can be translated into either handling seasonality to a certain extent or supervision to a larger extent. And it also gives you a 90%, operational efficiency. And all of that gets delivered, as a single unified platform. And it's very easy to start as well, when it looks like, to starting with the platform. So if you want to start, you're here on the webinar, so you definitely have the interest in that. If you want to get started, send us a request at hello@botminds.ai. We will set up an account and we will help you test your documents, and you can do that testing yourself. You can do the annotation yourself, and you can get, on your way by testing the platform right there itself. That is the end of my section. Ekta, I will hand this over back to you now.
Thank you, Vikas, for interesting insights. Because we have a few questions which people have put on the chat box, I would like to take it one by one.
Sure.
We have 3 questions, so quickly we can take so that we move to the panel. So it is from Satish Pandita. He's asking, is your intelligent document processing compatible to scanned documents? If so, what is the accuracy achieved? Also, do we have to use it in a Bfsi industry in India?
Sure, thanks. Thanks, Satish, for the question. So yeah, scanned documents, we handle them. But as with everything else, we look at a good quality document that needs to come through. Usually that sits at a 300 DPI, but of course, from a scan perspective, there are a couple of things that I want to mention here. A scanned document usually either has a challenge that it has not been aligned properly. So if you have a document straight, a document is like this, the AI can't really read that because you've got a problem there. We have no problem in that. We can look at any of the orientation. When it comes down to being able to read that, and that is where a human in the loop comes into play. Our extraction engines extract most of the information, and wherever there's a low confidence, of course, that goes to human in the loop, where the correction is done. Once the correction is done, there is a learning, and then it goes back and does that training itself. So that's the in India. I think there are multiple use cases in the banking and financial services, right? So I'm not sure if you're asking if we have done something like that, or are there use cases in BFSI? If it is the later one, then of course there are multiple use cases, which is there within the banking and financial sectors. So you have, we're talking about something where you're looking at the loan applications that are coming through. You're looking at, people onboarding. You're looking at, fraud checks, and so on and so forth. Just to answer that question.
Thank you. Another question, because we have, is from Padmini. She's from First Source. She's asking, what's your experience of handling handwritten documents and what kind of accuracy is expected? Also share your experience of handling cursive handwriting.
Yeah, so I would invite here Gokul, our CEO and co-founder. I could answer that, but I think Gokul would be a better person to answer this handwriting question.
Hey, thanks, Vikas. Thanks for the question. Handwritten documents, as Vikas explained, it's a modular components. While we are researching on the this particular HWR. We deliver solutions to customers with integrating with other handwritten recognition components. So it's because it's a modular approach, we can integrate to other handwritten recognition components as well. Yeah.
Okay.
So we continue to research on this topic. At the moment, we don't have any production ready model for handwritten recognition.
Yeah. Thanks, Rahul.
Okay. So moving to the next question, quickly we'll take, again, it's Srinivasan from First Source Solutions. Can Botminds intelligent process automation work outside the client's Citrix layer? Like, can it perform surface automation?
Sure. Thanks, Srinivas. I would, no, that's not the way we looked at it. So we're looking at specifically if your document, so this is an IPA for IDP, right? So intelligent process automation and IDP, so document processing. So if you were to compare what we do versus what an RPA does, which is where you're looking at Citrix-based performance, yeah, that's not comparable at this point. Processing and any of the documents that are coming through, wherever they are coming through, then we can handle that. I'm not sure if you have any documents coming through on the other side of Citrix. I think your question is more on the IPA side.
Krishna, L&T, where he has previously asked about algorithms.
Yeah. So the extracted values, what you've seen in the demo that I showed up onto a PDF file. You can extract it into an Excel. You can have a JSON, and you can do whatever you like after that, because that for you is a structured output, and then you can do any calculations. Your question, if it's the other way around, that once the information has been extracted and you have 3 fields extracted, from a balance sheet, can you total them up and can you show that? Yeah, we could do that for you as well.
And there's one more question. We'll take that quickly. It's Pranav. Can you please explain about InfoSec? Just a moment.
Sure.
This is question InfoSec.
Yeah, I see that question here. So InfoSec when dealing with important documents. Yeah.
Yes,
so
yes.
So we our platform essentially is deployed either on Botminds AI cloud or on your cloud itself. So let's assume that you're giving your cloud and you're deploying our AI in your cloud. So that installation, that platform is an extension of your tech department and your asset, and our AI literally sits in that cloud. So to me, of course, there's a conversation with the InfoSec to be had around that, but a very simple answer there is that none of the documents really leave that cloud of yours where you have deployed, Botminds AI. There is no communication with us when it comes down to documents. There's nothing that comes to us. So from a security standpoint.
Because we have 2 more questions now. Do you want to take that up, or we should move to
I think we should just hold, because we have a panel and then we have a Q&A as well.
So Mr. Syed and Mr. Unikrishnan, please stay back. Definitely we are going to take your questions, but we have a panel speaker who are waiting and we want to move ahead. Yes?
And we will answer the questions before we end today. It doesn't matter.
Yes, of
Thanks.
course. So thank you, Vikas, and thank you everyone for your question. The topic is accelerating value in your business with intelligent document processing through AI. I would start introducing our panels first. We have Rinda Pai, Director Information Systems 24/7.ai. She's working as mentioned Director Information Systems, where cutting edge technology like AI, ML, RPA, bots, etc. is used to create applications that enhance user journey and experiences and make it easier to get through things done. Human intelligence and artificial intelligence is used in tandem to get the best of both. Mr. Ritupan Bakshi, Head Quality Enterprise Tech Mahindra Business Process Services. He has 25 years of work experience. Before joining Tech Mahindra, he was working as a Head Innovation with HGS for 3 years. He's an MBA and BE Mechanical Engineer and MBB, Lead Auditor and a Diploma in Analytics, first year IIT Mumbai. Mr. Kaushal Agrawal, Vice President, Head of Emerging Digital Transformation, EXL Service. Kaushal has been working with EXL for almost 20 years, where he has done a variety of roles, including heading various functions and geographies. Kaushal is an AMP for Harvard Business School. Mr. Rajesh Sethi, BPO Head Business Transformation Process, TCS. Rajesh works with TCS in cognitive business operations, providing leadership on transformation for enterprise process like FOA, SCM, and HRO. He has over 27 years of work experience that includes operations, IT, process excellence, and transformation. And Mr. Gokul Ganpati, co-founder and CEO, Botminds.ai. So over to you, Vikas, who would be moderating the panel. Over to you.
Thanks, Ekta. And thank you all our panelists for joining in. We really appreciate your time here today. We have a great audience. I see the set of questions that are coming through. So one of the first ones that I want to offer, in terms of what are the challenges that knowledge services organizations, currently face? The technology is absolutely changing very rapidly and very fast. We were at desktop-based automation. We were at VBA scripts, long back, and now we're talking about a unified platform, all of that. So the question really is, what are the challenges that knowledge services organizations essentially face, and how do you specifically cope with that? And I will offer that to Vrinda to begin with.
Hi, thank you. My internet is a bit patchy, so in case you're not able to hear, let me know.
I can hear you.
Yeah, fine. So when it comes to knowledge processing, like today, I think we're just getting there in terms of whether it's invoices, whether it's contracts. They're complicated. They're not really easy to do stuff, and it requires a lot of intelligence to be built into the systems which can manage these. And today we also have a lot of people sitting and doing these transactional activities, which is not really unlocking their potential in terms of intelligence and where they can add value. That time is being spent in transactions. So that is something that is not really worth, a human being spending time on, which can be done by the system. We are getting there, and I think the way forward is very exciting in terms of what can be achieved in terms of removing these activities, making a balance between human and artificial intelligence.
Sure. Thanks, Vrinda. Kaushal, you look after digital transformation. I'd be keen to hear your thoughts on that as well.
I think, can you hear me?
Yeah, can hear you good.
Right. So I think there are various challenges, the industry faces. And I think one of them, and the key one is, how to, intelligent automation, how to drive intelligent automation in their organization, because it's become a necessity. The organizations probably are not there where they have to be, in their maturity curve and intelligent, transformation. And, everybody is trying to make that shift and trying to make it very fast. So, at what pace you can, shift, and if you can outmaneuver your competition by making that shift, I think is the biggest challenge the knowledge service industry today faces, in my opinion, because I think rest of the challenges have remained, constant. Some of those challenges exist in the industry, but this is something that has come up as a need, as a necessity in the industry over the last few years. And I think the organizations are, have to do it. It's not a choice with them.
Sure. And I'll carry on with you only, Kaushal. Just follow a question there. Now that all the organizations basically are adopting AI, if they're not, they kind of ought to do that. What are the biggest challenge that you see for an organization that is looking to adopt an AI? What kind of challenge that should they be, scenarios should they be aware of? What should they be taking care of when adopting AI?
Yeah, I think it's a widely discussed topic. My opinion on that is that the biggest bottleneck or hurdle that the organizations today face is fear of failure, right? And there are organizations which have tried implementing AI, have not been successful, or they hear about cases which have not worked well in the past with other organizations. And all of that creates and of course the learning curve that is required sometimes to put AI solutions in. Organizations are not prepared to go through that learning curve sometimes, and that pushes them to delay their plans to adopt AI. I personally think that they can't. Again, it's something that can't be avoided. You can delay it, but you can't avoid it.
Yeah.
And
accessibility to some of these solutions is becoming easier and easier. There are, I heard a question on handwriting extraction. There are, modules, microservices available on cloud, which you can use to plug and play with some of these specific problems that today, document extraction, faces. And, you can intelligently decide which area of the organization you will target when implementing, AI, particularly with respect to intelligent document processing. I sort of say it's like learning a cycle. If you fall, you have to just get up and try and cycle again, right? You can't stop it. So if you've had bad experiences with implementing AI in the past, that doesn't mean that you don't try again. You have to try. And, all I would say is choose an area where if you fall, it doesn't hurt you much. Or, look for areas that can drive, quick returns. I mean, typically, I often get asked a question, what processes, which areas to look for when, driving AI and particularly, IDP. I say look for processes where money is coming in or money is going out. So your interactions or touch points with customers, your interactions and touch points with your suppliers. And that's probably the area where if you have documents there, you could possibly, bring in solutions which could, help you plug gaps which have existed in the past and give you quick savings. And those could be early, early wins that you can get by doing that. But, in my mind, the scope for IDP is beyond just cost savings. It is, it helps you improve your speed to market. You can, reduce the turnaround time that is required to process documents, make it from a few days to just a few minutes, and be a tactical differentiator in the industry against your competition. And we are seeing that happening in the mortgage industry. It is not going to be very far off when we see that mortgage loans, you can go online, just get mortgage loan and instantaneously, and today that process takes about maybe 10-15 days, right, across the globe.
Yeah.
And lastly, I think the tons of data that is getting collected, using IDP, document extraction, and getting stored in structured formats is going to open up new doors for the intelligence that can be built in using that data. And if you don't start that journey now, you're going to be left behind in the race, and your competition who may be starting that journey now. So if you've not already done that, you've got to do that. Start collecting data, structuring data, and getting yourself started in that journey. So that's all I would say.
Absolutely, thanks for that. Rajesh, I'll come to you with the same question. Based on what Kaushal has just mentioned, your thoughts in terms of the transformation. Rajesh highlighted Kaushal highlighted the fact that there are certain specific processes to begin with. Of course, document and unstructured data seems to be the last frontier that we all have at the moment. So what's been your experience in when you looked at business process transformations at your side?
Yeah, so thanks for that, Vikas. So is my voice clear for you?
Yeah, I can hear you very well.
Are you able to hear me well?
Yes.
One moment. So, yeah, I think while very interesting discussion today, and what I noticed from my experience working on different digitization initiatives is we have, usually been relying on our IT organization to develop solutions. And first most times we take longer to get to what the promised state is. And demand side aside, of course, already the point is made that the customer is pulling for new kind of processes which are in line with what AI can do. And on ground, the execution side of it, when it comes to really delivering on those promises, it is a different ball game.
Sure.
So when we saw times about really a struggle to give what we have promised, the kind of savings, the kind of productivity, and it's sometimes so that what I was saying was the challenge sometimes comes up on the execution side, that we are not either giving the productivity or the kind of savings that we had promised or what we envisaged, and then we are dealing with the iterative developmental effort,
Yep.
and at some point we are saying, okay, there's a compromise here, and this is what we are going to do, and we may have to put some extra folks from our pocket, which was not part of the budget, but now let's deal with what we have. So what interesting thing is coming through now is that we got to, although we pitch AI in a big way, but we got to come to a point where the subject matter experts can really feel comfortable about what's possible in the technology side. And like you said, no code environment. I think that's where, see, it's very easy in such a case, for a subject matter expert to really learn, given it's no code, and deliver on what's expected when they are part of the solution. Then, getting a tech person to really understand the nuances of a complex process. And the challenges usually are the complexity is not fully grasped upfront. It's usually underestimated. And then the iterations of that alignment of the domain knowledge it's usually a big challenge. So I think from my perspective, one of the takeaways is how our no code environment really can enable and empower our subject matter experts, really, so that they take accountability that we can fulfill these promises that we are making here in our solutions.
Absolutely. Thanks for that. I think that's very key in terms of being able to extract the knowledge, and that's what we spoke about as well. I'm kind of keen to understand what happens to all this, all the platform that we spoke about. We talked about, no code here. We talked about deciding certain things. So Ritupuram, I'm coming to you with this question. In your view, what really happens to the quality? How does one handle a quality scenario? I mean, we are looking at it from a human in the loop perspective, but as a practitioner, what's your view on that in terms of, quality for the enterprise business?
Am I audible? Because
Yes,
is my
very
video
much.
also available?
Both are perfect. Thank you.
Great. See, let me take the question, and I will also repeat a couple of things which the previous speakers said, including the speakers earlier. One was a quote from Bill Gates, which talked of the automation that we do, either amplifying the benefit or amplifying whatever. I mean, it amplifies both ways, right? So that is one view which I want to echo.
Yeah.
There are other very relevant things which people also talked about. So what I will say is, I'll probably add to some of the things which have been said. Also, when you're talking of the roadblocks or the challenges related to related to AI, one of the things which I think we are somewhere trying to do is within the old organization structures and the old organizational processes, we are trying to fit these new age concepts, which does not always work the right way, the way we want it to work. It impacts speed, it impacts the quality of the AI that we want to do. And I mean, all said and done, people are still working in siloed environments. The people who, like Rajesh mentioned, the IT does not know business, the business does not know AI. People try to go for shortcuts or easier solutions like no code rather than the optimum solution. So all of this cauldron, all of these things in the cauldron do not really make sense for an optimum solution. Again, when you talk of AI first, I'll probably say that there should be a solution first before we think of automating it. And the solution has to be done by someone who understands a little bit both about technology and has a deep understanding about the business, so that that person is able to understand what is to be automated, what makes sense to be to get automated. There has to be facilitation skills that this person needs to have. This person or this team needs to interact with the technology teams, with the coders, and with vendors like you, to really come up with the solutions. A lot of time, the solutions are not optimum because service providers like you, like your company, they may not have the whole business context. They may not know the people in the organization. So I believe that is another challenge where I hope you are getting what I'm saying, that we are
Absolutely.
not really optimally organized and optimally structured for what we are attempting to do, and that affects the quality. We end up in a boardroom meetings where people think that technology will solve all their problems, which is not the case, and they end up doing what Bill Gates cautioned about in that quote. Yeah.
I think at the very start, when we all started working on the computers, back in 10, 20 years ago, not 10, 20 plus years ago, it's garbage in, garbage out. And I think it's never been any more true than today, that literally AI, what you feed in is what you get on the other side. And that leads in very well to the other question that I was, wanting to ask is, so Rituparan, you'd mentioned that, it's important for business does not know technology does not, and business does not know AI, and all these issues are there. So I'm heading to Gokul with this question. So Gokul, would you want to just take 1 minute and just explain how do we handle this challenge where we as the platform provider, of course, we don't have expertise on all the domains. How do we handle that challenge? What is it that we have to offer to the industry and to all the people on this webinar today? How do we help them do the things that they already know, and we just become a supporting tool there? Your thoughts, please.
Yeah. So when it comes to IDP, right, it's all ready-made building blocks you can use. You don't have to worry about algorithms. You don't have to worry about the technology underpinnings. That's perfect. But when it comes to the IPA, the process or intelligent process automation, companies like Botminds certainly needs that end-to-end picture, the complete picture. It's the consultation approach or the consulting approach, certainly still valid. I mean, that's why when it we go and sit with our, I mean, basically now, yes, we many sessions where we try to understand the end-to-end process. And then when the reason is not just to understand, it's also to suggest. For example, the most of the time what we learn is they never approached in a way that this can be automated, right? For example, there was a discussion about a Bfsi use case. I can talk about, right? So you need, I mean, basically you need a fraud deduction, or you want to identify whether the company is sanctioned or not, right? So the client is pleasantly surprised. Yeah, we can do. You have to give the name. Our system can go and search for all the mentions in the web, and then it can read the web pages. It can extract. It can bring it to you. If there is any mention, adverse mention about the particular person in any of the source you specify, and then that can be automated. And that's something they never thought of. I mean, they thought always, okay, we have to take the document. We have to give to your system, then they, the system will convert that unstructured document into structure, because that's how they approach. So I mean, I always request to my customer, be ready to get surprised. A lot of things happened in the last few years. The technological breakthroughs happened in the last few years are unimaginable. So it's AI is the ability to read and understand web pages and documents are many-fold increase in the last few years. So that's what platforms like us incorporate. So tell us the entire story, and then we can give you the better. And that leads to the Ritupan and also others pointed out. So it needs some reimagining, not necessarily in the same old structure, same old way. Take that process and try to automate that. The small bricks. Instead of that, be willing to reimagine, and you can automate the end-to-end process. That's one more thing I want to say here.
Thanks, Gokul. Thanks. So just to add up on that, and I will give one more question, and I'll take that to Nanda before I want to leave at least 5 minutes for any more questions that have come in within the audience. Just to wrap up on Gokul's point there, I think the important thing, in addition to what he said, is that we provide the platform, your knowledge workers, your people who actually are the best experts within the processes do the training of the platform. So that's where we don't become the roadblock or the interference between what we know about the particular process. So what you know about the process gets trained to the platform and you get the results. So that's where the transfer piece that comes through. All right. So Nanda, coming back to you, with the question. So you've been evaluating multiple platforms, multiple systems as well. In your view, with your experience, with us and the other evaluation as well, how key is to have a unified platform to address things end to end, rather than just have multiple pieces which are used by multiple departments or multiple multiple divisions, so as to say. What's your view on that? The use of a unified platform.
I think a use of a unified platform definitely improves the customer end user experience. And if you have disparate systems, ultimately you need to make it invisible to the end user, and for the end user it should look like seamless, everything coming together kind of a thing. So sometimes a solution where you have one platform that gives everything, if it is there, if it works for you, well and good, fantastic. I mean, if somebody can give us that solution, that's the best thing. But if not, if you're using disparate systems also, we always try to kind of make sure that the front end does not seem like there are multiple things and the person has to go into different places to do different things, and different people doing. So at least you try to make the front end look unified, and in the back end, yes, maybe there could be inputs coming in from different places, because end of the day, I think today it's all about customer experience. It's all about making it seamless to the customer. So that is extremely important, and in that sense a unified system is definitely helpful.
Sure, thanks for that. Ekta, do we have any additional questions that have come in?
We have questions from Sayed. He's from BMS, where he is asking, we are a software product company offering solutions to the shipping and logistic industry. So do you have a model by which your IDP can be bundled along with offering?
Quick answer, Sayed, absolutely yes. We can offer you the platform, and then you can integrate that with your platform, and then you can provide the solution to your shipping and logistics industry. Absolutely yes.
Great. Okay, we have one more question from Uni Krishnan. Is it possible to extract all the tables from different document if the tables are not of same structure?
The answer, Unikrishnan, is yes as well. So even a single document that has multiple types of tables, no problem at all. If you have multiple documents with multiple types of tables, no problem at all. The whole idea of unstructured is that you saw in the demo that I ran. There are tables which look like tables, and then there are tables which look like just tabulated, and as humans we know that's tabular format, but it may not be specifically when it comes down to reading. So multiple types of tables, multiple in a single document is absolutely okay. If you have multiple documents and multiple tables, that is also absolutely okay. The only thing that changes is that when we train our model, our model is already trained to understand table. What we need to specify is that here is one example of a table, here is a different type of table. And if we give sufficient examples on both of them, then we can extract all those types of tables. So that's just training part, onboarding part, I would say, not even training. Google, do you want to add anything on that?
Yeah, I mean, yes, we have core models, base models that understand table. What we need is, the domain knowledge. So what's that cell value called, whether it is X or Y, that training. We need few examples so that we can map to your taxonomy. So we have capability to identify table and, whatever may be the complexity. But further extracting a value to the taxonomy is where the onboarding exercise is.
Fantastic. I see no more questions. So I'm going to do a quick rapid fire round with all the lists. I'll start with the way the image was sent out, earlier. So Kaushal, coming over to you. Just one answer. What is the first process that you're saying? What is the process that comes to your mind that can immediately get benefits from IDP and IPA as a unified, platform solution?
As you said, one first, because accounts payable in finance and accounting can be significantly automated. Coming to you, Nanda, what's your one process that you look at automating first with IDP and IPA?
Invoice processing, accounts payable.
All right. Coming to you, Rituparam, with the same question, please.
Yeah, the answer is also the same.
All right. Just like a mute point, but
I'll jump in quickly. Latest research I was going through. 65% of success stories happened in the last 2 years in RPA, all on accounts payable. It's rare to see other I can see that.
It's a point because the automation adaptation definitely happens from Bfsi because that's where largely the money is, that's where the challenge is, that's where the structured information is, and that's the most documented process that exists. So usually that's been a very strong point for automation from any point. So I'm not really surprised with these answers.
I'll take one controversial stance here.
Yeah.
That's because of the maturity of that automation technology at the time, right? So, for example, is that the high value process, right? You for example, your demo you showcased, right? 100-page or even 1,000-page document, and 12 hours, subject matter experts spending 12 hours, and and you're spending literally $100 to deliver. Is it not imperative to solve that process? Yes, but 2 years back the technology was not ready.
Absolutely.
Right. That's why it's now. That invoice processing is, yes, it's that cycle time and the resource expertise needed was very. But now it's the technology is ready to solve these kind of high information intensive processes.
Absolutely.
So it's high time to look at the processes where you need more subject matter experts and information intensive document.
Right. Thanks. Rajesh, coming to you very quickly with the same question.
Yeah, no, I think one opportunity, a process came to my mind is about in an advisory firm, we do this balance sheets, pre-preparations, and we use last year's numbers and all that. So that seemed like a good candidate. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Brenda, are you still there with us?
So
yes. What would be your process? And it'll be great if you could pick up anything apart from whatever everybody has done. So.
Yeah, actually, I was thinking about the contracting process. I think somebody did mention that we should look at high value. Now, contracting, if you look at it, right, a big part of contracts are pretty standard, and the terms and conditions normally in hundreds of pages get lost a lot of times, and then sometime at a very wrong time that particular clause jumps out, and then you say, oops, I missed this. So contracting, if we are able to look at really enhancing the possibility of contracts being converted and easily initiated into some actions, into some deliverables, and into some kind of alerts and escalations, if it's integrated with the entire process, which I foresee down the line may not be, we are not at that stage at the moment, but it's a distinct possibility. So that would be really exciting.
Absolutely. Thanks for that. Thanks for a very different answer. And yeah, contracting is one of the things that we have kind of, worked on and delivered, but yeah, very important because it's a high value thing and it takes a very, very large amount of time to get this right. And the stakes are very high on that. So with that, I'll just thank all the participants and of course, all our esteemed panelists to take out, good time on the Friday evening. Thank you all.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you.